What's up and welcome to Idle Insights, a show where I, Treavor Bettis, talk to interesting people about idle champions in Dungeons and Dragons. And this week with me is the amazing Saige Ryan.
Hello, hello.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a great day. I have to point out, because I pointed out when we first got in here, dress is freaking amazing. Like
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
I feel so underdressed. I'm in a Trials Amount Tiamat shirt and I feel
I think
underdressed.
you're actually more appropriately dressed for the occasion. The world is in fact on fire, and
True.
I am coping with it by purchasing up all of the 90s prom dresses I can find at thrift stores.
Heck yes. Yeah. No, world is absolutely on fire, and if prom dresses help that, prom dresses help that.
It's all in the shoulder pads.
But Saige, in case there is someone out there who does not know who you are you for those fine folks?
Hi, I am Saige Ryan. I am a host and streamer and content creator here on the internet. I am also Valentine on the Black Dice Society. I'm part of the channel Pixel Circus and one of the founders of that channel, where we do all kinds of tabletop and D&D goodness there as well. And I'm also a cast member on Smosh and Smosh Games.
Heck yeah, you do so much. To the point that when I first started doing the podcast production for Black Dice Society, like I saw y'all around in different places, but then you started popping up in just stuff I was watching already. And I'm just like, hey, wait, that's Saige. Most recently in a Kind of Funny content that I usually have Kind of Funny podcasts going while I'm working, and I just started playing it, and they're like, hey, what, this is Saige Ryan. I'm like, what?
You can't escape me, Trevor. I am everywhere. Yes, I also am occasionally on Kind of Funny. We do talk about Star Wars content over there a lot.
Oh yeah, good stuff. The comments about episode 3, chef's kiss. I want to start this off the way that I like starting these off with. A good icebreaker question for people that are just nerdy about D&D. How did you get into D&D?
So I got into D&D feels late for me. I started playing when I was 18 or 19. I always wanted to play as a kid, but there was only one person I knew growing up that played D&D, and man, he was just the worst.
Oh God.
There was just one teenage boy that was 4 or 5 years older than me, closer to my older brother's age, and he was the D&D kid locally, and was just a whole nightmare. And I remember my mother telling me that I wasn't allowed to play, not because of Satanic Panic, not because of Dungeons and Dragons itself, but because of that kid specifically.
That's a fair point.
And honestly, fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't find friends to play with until I was about 18 or 19. And the first game that I ever played in was a Star Wars reskin.
Oh, nice.
Somebody ran a little Star Wars game. And I was so instantly hooked on it. I was within a couple months playing multiple times a week.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, the good times of getting to play multiple times a week.
Especially off camera.
Yeah. No, I similar boat. I didn't get into it till I was 21. I had the whole I play World of Warcraft, but at least I don't play Dungeons and Dragons view on it. And then someone told my wife that she could play a pirate, and next thing I know, I was rolling a character.
And thank you to your wife.
Yes. But yeah, that's I that one is the nerdy kid one. That's the one, because that's what I had growing up. There was one kid in my high school that was like, oh yeah, they play D&D, he's the DM, and he was one of those DMs that people warn you about. I just heard these terrible stories. I'm like, why would anyone want to play that?
Yeah, and it was still too I'm not old, but it was still not a popular thing to do, and it was something that was looked down upon as that kid being it was very gatekeepy, I guess is the best way to describe it. The people who were in it did not want to include especially girls into it.
Yep.
And the people who were outside of it thought that guy was a dweeb. So I grew up playing a lot of Magic the Gathering. My intro to tabletop gaming in general was all through Magic the Gathering. And I distinctly remember as a homeschool kid, I had to work so hard to preserve not getting picked on more. Like there's only a certain level of like
Yeah.
types of weird you can be as the homeschool kid. So I remember being at the local game store for like Friday night Magic tournaments and seeing like girls my age from like my middle school or high school walking by and hiding under the table so that they wouldn't
Oh my
see me
God.
in the game store. I had to pick my weirds, and homeschool was not a choice.
You know, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Oh, I like that you got to pick your weirds.
Especially at the time. What I'm so grateful for now, especially for like kids my niece's age. My niece is about to be 10, and she doesn't have to pick her weirds, and I am so happy about that.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. Well, we're here today to talk about Valentine because she is coming to Idol Champions of the Forgotten Realms. Tell us about Valentine. How'd you come about making her?
Yeah, so Valentine is a reborn aberrant mind sorcerer, once a high living, high half elf that came together when B-Dave reached out to me and said, we're putting together a campaign for Ravenloft. I'm calling my most goth friends. And I said, oh, thank you. I'm very flattered. He said, I need some spooky friends to do spooky stuff, which I'm in. Absolutely. So Valentine in particular was created because he said the phrase, good people do not or should not end up in Ravenloft. Feel free to write something evil. Do with that what you will. So I generally play pretty like good, like I'm a chaotic good character in my core is what I tend to write repeatedly. So I wanted to experiment with Valentine. I was like, I'm gonna write somebody who's ill-intended. I write a lot of characters that do sometimes terrible things, but they're always well-intended. The baseline for Valentine was she doesn't have good intentions.
Okay.
And like, that's been an interesting journey because now we're like, I think we're 50 episodes in. We're over 50 episodes in.
50
at this point
as of this recording, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So at this point, there's been like an arc to that and a change to that. But foundationally, and something I don't really get to talk about, I guess, a lot for her is the idea that I had for her is in her life on, pre-death, she was good in a world that was not, because she was raised by people that were in shady underground business. She never really got to fully understand what her father's work actually was, but he was entangled in a lot of underground crime syndicate, which was fronted through like the equivalent of like a nightclub establishment in a fantasy world. So from a kid, she worked at the front desk. And as a teenager, she was supposed to be walking around, making sure everyone was having a good time. She was hospitality. She was taking care of people. And more than anything, she was keeping people distracted, right, from what was going on behind the scenes there. And it got her and her family killed very suddenly and quite horrifically.
Yeah.
And she cared a lot before that, and she lived such an immense life of like, she had every what she considered to be opportunity and privilege in the world, and it still wasn't enough for her. So in death, quick do-over, she didn't get a choice. She was wormed into her brain, and she detached entirely. There's nothing about the reborn like origin or lineage that requires any like change in your emotional state or anything in that. But like, I decided that thinking through the process and thinking through like this apparatus that brought her back that we decided on for the lore, that it would change her, and that she saw it, even if it wasn't necessarily true, as her opportunity to be cold. She wanted to be as cold as her skin, right? So she came back without the detachments, and she managed to reconnect with Tatiana, which is Becca Scott's character, who was a bodyguard for her family in life. And Tatiana, I think, has always been kind of Valentine's like weakness to say. She really thought that she could disconnect from everything and be this like hardened evil person that no one would ever take advantage of again, that would never catch her slipping up. But like, Tatiana has and always will be the exception to that. And at this point in Valentine's journey, she's discovering that actually maybe cruelty and disconnect is not actually the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
We're at a very interesting time in the story for Valentine where things are escalating and growing. And I think she's realizing that what she considered evil is nowhere near the capabilities of the world of Ravenloft.
Oh, I like that.
Evil goes much deeper than she ever understood.
That's I like that that because one of the things I do like enjoy asking is the character development over a stream, and yeah, that sort of thing of just like I'm gonna be evil now, and then oh maybe that's not what that is. That is a fascinating thing to watch a character go through.
It is, and she hasn't committed to being good by any means.
Yeah.
But she's definitely exploring what I guess that word means in Ravenloft in particular, because evil where she comes from, I guess the bar was a little different. You know, if in the Forgotten Realms, I do think she was probably still pretty evil, but like, damn, Ravenloft makes her look kind of nice.
I know, like I was just thinking about that, the comparison. It's like, oh yeah, I'm evil, but when you go to a place where someone's feeding people to a living plant to make more plant people, it's a little bit of a different perspective.
It is a different perspective, and it's difficult for her because she has a couple of these attachments that she can't seem to let go of, no matter how badly she wants to, and the things that she will fight for instinctively and impulsively, that like I as a character every time I'm like, I know how badly she wants to not care. I know how badly she wants to be unaffected by the things happening around her. But things that she continually fights for are low-key, and she'll never admit it, are definitely children.
Okay.
That's definitely it. And as somebody who was a child that was like pushed into working and being a tiny little adult, she definitely has a soft spot for children are innocents.
Okay.
They very well might be evil in the future, and then we can do whatever we want with them, but like give them the time first. And then also of autonomy, because she feels trapped by the God brain. She didn't choose to be reborn. She did not choose the current status of herself, her body, anything. So autonomy is one of those like weaknesses of hers that she has to fight for, and sometimes accidentally aligns her with doing good.
I like that. One of the things that you said earlier was that you know, you normally play the chaotic good character. So did you find it difficult when you first started playing Valentine of switching over from that?
I did. I am somebody who I love a backstory, and I love a
Yes.
tragic backstory.
Yes.
And I think my favorite part of Dungeons and Dragons is getting to approach situations with all of the information I have. There's so much information I have about Valentine that will never come up, that will be entirely insignificant to her character, of backstories, of things that she's experienced, of opinions that she holds. And I love the opportunity to make an informed decision for someone that is like not me. Right. So I get to go, well, based on, and I'm doing this like quick little head math of like, based on this experience, this opinion, this bias, this is this decision this character would make here. So in the beginning too, and we all got there and we all kind of came in being like, we're going to be so tough and spooky. And then I think a lot of us like softened a little bit when you start playing, because it's like, I don't want to be so holding on to that and not letting go, or when it like sometimes even might be more fun, it's finding the balance of what's going to be like fun to watch and what feels true to my character, right? So it's like there's a fun scenario happening where everybody's frolicking and having a good time, and I know Valentine would not participate. How can I justify her begrudgingly having a good time so I can have fun right now?
I will say, Valentine begrudgingly having a good time is some of my favorite moments in the show.
Thank you very much. She does it for me.
No, I when I've talked to B Dave about the show, I mean, he's never named names on it. I've never even asked him off camera, but he's always talking about there was one person in particular in the group who was just like, I'm gonna have this super evil character. They're gonna be evil all the time. And then they got into the show and they just immediately started cracking jokes.
Yep.
and I think that is, I think it is really hard to like. You know, I'm like you. I love backstory. I love all of that stuff. I do have all of that stuff in the back of my head while I'm going through. One time, one of my DMs was like, "Can you write out their backstory?" And I handed them 4 pages of single spaced font, and they're like, "No, don't do that." But it is. it is still hard when you're getting that going and then actually sitting down at the table and then that character just does not come out exactly the same way as you were imagining them. And it's always interesting to watch that evolve.
Yeah, a lot of stuff changes, honestly, when you get to the table. For me, most of all, the voice does. A lot of the time I'll sit there and I'll think, like, especially if there's a show coming up, for like a few weeks beforehand, I'll be like, I think this is the voice I'm going to do. And I'll start like practicing a voice, like get comfortable in an accent or something. And then it'll be like, introduce yourself. And it's like, well, that's not what I had in mind. Okay. I guess we're going with it. I describe Valentine's accent as like space British, which is to explain that not all the time. She's British, but not all the time, and only lightly, which is like the amount that people were in Star Wars. Like
the Princess Leia accent. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's Leia being like, all right, I guess I'm going to be British. And them going, I mean, you don't have to. And then her going, all right. So I'm doing like a Carrie Fisher level British.
Okay. I like that. I like that description a lot. Tell me about who Trigram is.
Yeah, so Trigram is another thing that came out very differently than I was expecting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we were planning the character, and we had just gotten like the PDF initially to look at the Ravenloft book because it wasn't out yet when we started planning the show. And we were looking at these like dark gifts that you could have and things like that. And based on this character that I had already written, I was like having some kind of like symbiotic thing in her brain is the one that suits her the best. Was it the one that came with the most benefits in that book? No, it came with none. It didn't have any. There were so many of these like dark gifts in particular, which I don't know if I've ever acknowledged that was part of her like dark gift. So surprise.
Spoilers.
But there are all these dark gifts that give these like incredible benefits to characters, and a lot of them have consequences, but they come with something good. This one is mostly flavor, and there is a table that you can like roll on essentially to see if it takes control. We don't play with that mechanic a lot because I do think that like autonomy of your character is very important.
Yes.
Especially for a show that people are going to be watching and not a home game where you're like, let's experiment with this where we can walk it back. So we don't utilize a lot of that. Like, are they going to take control of your character? But that is what that is. So Trigram, originally, I had this idea that it wasn't necessarily going to talk. I didn't think that Trigram was going to have a voice or like a person at all in my character. And in episode 1, B-Dave just turned it on. He just did it. And I was like, okay, yes. All right. New brain roommate. All right. Yeah, let's do this. I'm game. So originally I thought it was going to be more of the mechanic of how I portrayed her evil is I was going to roll for it. And as opposed to it taking the autonomy, I would make the worst decision. I would intentionally then choose the worst of the options ahead of me by those rolls. Okay. But I think that as a role play perspective, Trigram has been fascinating, and Trigram has had his own little arc that we're working on together right now, of going from this simply just like servant of the god brain to a full-fledged personality that might have some opinions, which is very interesting, but is also a part of Valentine's like desire for autonomy. She didn't ask for a roommate. She didn't sign up for this.
Yeah. He didn't put a down payment or anything like that. He didn't sign the lease.
Exactly. He is not helping on the rent. I'll tell you that. So with that in mind, it's this like autonomy of going from you are this thing that I am stuck with and I am upset that you are here and I am going to regularly threaten to kill you. To, is this a being? And if I believe in autonomy overall, is his autonomy then also something I care about? So there have been these conversations that have been coming up that were really insightful lately where he was showing these opinions on things and it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah, no,
this might be a person.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember B-Dave like having Trigram say something effective like, wait, why do I have an opinion or something like that? Or like, why do I care? And but I like hearing Trigram have a realization about themselves was weird.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And it's a fun plot device. It is. I enjoy it very much. I get to sometimes just like have a little shit talking fest inside my own brain. Great.
Was there any specific reason that Trigram showed up as a cat, or was that just something that B-Dave did?
Trying to remember why specifically it was a cat. I think he might have asked me like if it was going to be an animal, what my preference would be.
Okay.
I'm a real cat lady. I personally have 4.
Oh.
So cats are absolutely my first choice. And then when we were getting to design Tregram for Idle Champions was the first time Trigram's ever been brought to life because there's no existing art of Trigram, which
Yep.
is really, really cool. So I got to really sit down because like I think we described Trigram like once and then like you just know there's a cat around. So there's very little detail that's actually been set up in the game. But I always had like a vision for what Trigram looked like of this very like sleek, silky black cat. And the idea that like because it's created from the God brain and because it's not real, it could have these things like the tentacles and the things that emit from Valentine as well, as like a mirror of her in cat form a little bit.
I saw the in-game artwork for Trigram, and I was immediately just like, "Oh my god, I need it! Tentacle cat!"
I love him.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Trigram has been one of the more interesting aspects of like yeah, you're talking about like Trigram having a character arc and whatnot. That's not something that I expected to be like. I like in the first episode, I remember thinking like, oh, Trigram's gonna end up being like an adversary or something like that, and that's what I do love about the show is that, and it goes for all of y'all's characters as well. Is like I've not been able to guess where it's been going because like it's the super dark evil Ravenloft campaign. I mean, B Dave says at the beginning is like this is an evil campaign sort of thing, and I oh, what is that
My
one?
necklace says evil.
Ah,
I wear it just for this.
But like that, because of that, it's really subverted expectations, at least for me, of where things have gone and how things have played out, and I absolutely love that about it. Another thing that you've brought up though is the God brain, and that's you're an aberrant mind sorcerer. How has that affected stuff in game?
The God brain is very interesting. I think there's like a little hand in it all throughout the game. Obviously, Tregram is a symbiote of the God brain and is supposed to be there to do the God brain's bidding through me, essentially. And the God brain to me as a player feels like this very interesting inevitability. And Valentine, I think, feels that as well, that's future Valentine's problem. And there's so many current Valentine problems that it does feel like she's been postponing this inevitable huge catastrophe. So she acts in all things knowing that like for her, that's like the final boss, right? Whatever that means.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot of conversation and opportunity about her becoming a Dark Lord. And that seems like this idea of like, she's been fed this whole narrative of like you're supposed to be on a throne, you're supposed to be in power, you're supposed to have these things. So there is an inevitable clash of, am I going to fight for my autonomy? Am I going to take the power at the risk of my autonomy and like give up autonomy in one way to take it for another? Or is honestly, are we all going to die before that happens? Which is also totally possible. And like I say this at Saige Ryan outside of Valentine thinking she's gonna die. That's entirely possible. So with that in mind, she kind of makes every decision under like, we'll get through this one and then we'll figure out this stuff a bit later. And I guess that like he's gonna come for me at some point, but I'm going to keep putting out the fires down here. Originally, she had a lot of ideas of like, okay, well, maybe through Strahd, there's an opportunity. Oh, Strahd is dead. Oh, okay. Through Aslan, Aslan's useless. Okay. So she's been kind of like checking Dark Lords and not finding the thing she wanted. So we're just going to go through one Dark Lord at a time until she finds the power she desires.
I did love the way that you said that of like the God brain's just gonna show up. I just had to imagine giant God brain smashing through the wall like Kool-Aid Man. It's time.
I picture just like a tentacle one day just plucking her out of the campaign and she's like, just yeeted
like
into
the cane
space.
on the stage just pulls you.
Exactly. And that's it for Valentine. She's off to go face the inevitable.
It's boss fight time. So tell me a little bit about some of the equipment that Valentine's coming with in Idol Champions. What's some of the cool stuff she's got?
Yeah. So other than, I mean, not quite equipment, but her familiar, of course,
Yes.
Trigram, which I love. She has some items, which I'm actually going to pull up my list of right now. But obviously she has her pearls. Her pearls are an incredibly important fundamental part of Valentine. If you're not familiar with why she wears the pearls,
Oh, yep.
she was almost decapitated when she was killed. It is a huge scar across her neck that she covers with a layer of pearls that belonged to her mother, just as to not draw attention to it. And also, like, she cares a lot about looking polished and put together. So in that, she covers that scar. And it's given me a fun tool to utilize in moments to reveal. Because to me, without the pearls, like, that's Valentine and who
Yeah.
she actually is, and the thing that you should be afraid of. Whereas she's always kind of masking as this, like, much more dainty and much more approachable, and when you first see her person. So I'm going to pull up my equipment list, but I know that she has also a red lipstick, right?
Yep. I actually found it was outfit/red lipstick. Yeah.
Yes, there we go. So her lipstick is incredibly important. She's always wearing like a deep red, intimidating lip, like a nice blood color,
Heck yeah.
which suits her very, very well. She is coming with, let's see. Oh, I just hit my microphone very loudly. Oh, the brain in a jar. That's important. So the brain in a jar is obviously a part of the god brain that she has been traveling with since pretty early on in the series. When we met this brain in the jar, she wanted nothing to do with it, and it said no to that. So now she's holding it as just kind of this, like, I don't know what leverage this gives me. I don't know what will happen here, but I'm gonna hold on to it as long as I can. So far she's been carrying that and her little baby Bjorn on her back, passing it back and forth.
Stuart.
Yes, his name is Stuart.
Yep.
She doesn't particularly identify him as Stuart, knowing full well what it is. Stuart
That's
was kind
fair.
of like a cute nickname for the party. But like, she's like, this is a part of the thing that controls my brain, and I'm going to get to the bottom of how to control it, destroy it, or whatever it takes.
I love that.
So yeah, she's got her brain in the jar, who is absolutely, truly by the party named Stuart. She has some items that are connected to Nika, to Veronica. Her relationship with Veronica is not something that I have spoken about yet here. Nika obviously was like the catalyst for all of this. The night of Nika's wedding, which was also Desmond's brother's wedding, Armand, Veronica was killed horrifically, taken, gone, heart ripped out of her chest. And for Valentine, she had approached Nika that day right before her wedding and had, I didn't know it was going to happen. We didn't know, like, as players, that Nika was going to die. But she had approached her and just been like, let's go, leave with me, whatever it is. This isn't right. This isn't what I feel like is right for you. And Valentine has a lot of opinions. So she did. She came to her and was like, we can just get out of here. We won't tell anyone. Come, we'll watch Tatiana in the fighting pits and we'll have a great time. And she carries that, you know, she wasn't convincing enough. She didn't make it happen, but she was freaking right.
Yeah.
She was right. They should have left. Which I'm sure is part of Valentine's ego. So she carries a couple of pieces that are important to her from Nika. There was a point in the show where we talked about, it was a good few episodes in, because the first few episodes were such a short amount of time. She pulled out a little flower that she had kept from the veil that Nika wore of flowers for her wedding. And she's now like preserved it dead. So she didn't preserve it while it was alive, but she has kept it as a dead flower to remind her of that day. She has a handkerchief that was given to her by Nika from the afterlife, that little piece of fabric that she was carrying. And those pieces in particular are, I still think, an unfinished part of her journey to get back to understand what actually has happened to Nika. We don't know. We know she is a dreadlord. Spoilers. We know that she has a domain now, but Nika could answer a lot of questions for Valentine in that, what is it like? And Valentine really wants to know. So she loved Nika. I think it is one of those things where, for me as a player, I never completely committed or decided to what kind of love that was, but she loved Nika in a complicated way that she doesn't understand. So she has quite a few tokens that connect her to that. She has a friendship bracelet that Tatiana made her when she was a kid.
Yes.
That I don't think that Tatiana knows that she keeps, because she doesn't wear it. She keeps it in a pocket.
That's very Valentine.
Yeah, she would never publicly display something so childish or something that contains so much emotion. It's not polished enough for her outfit, but she has been keeping it in a pocket since they were kids. When because their families were connected, which is how Tatiana ended up working for my family. And they were friends, and Tatiana was her sense of normalcy as a kid. So she's been keeping that this whole time. We've got dolls. We've got a couple of the boneless zombie and the doll and the pretty kitty. Those were from the carnival. At the carnival, she would generally see these, like the Dark Ravenloft carnival. She would go and she would see the thing that was essentially a little hint as to what the next adventure was going to be, or maybe one they had just been on, represented in this ever-changing, uncontrollable little stand at the carnival.
The boneless zombie. Yeah, that you were talking about the possibility of, TPK and everybody died. That one, the encounter with the boneless zombies was the first time I was like, oh, B-Dave is not holding back at all.
Yeah, we're going for it. We're really going for it.
Yeah.
And I'm jumping all over the place because I don't know how to read. But the last one I do definitely want to talk about is barbarian treats, which I think is very funny. She doesn't eat as a reborn. As a reborn, you can choose to eat, but you don't need to. Valentine chooses not to, and at some point has become kind of like repulsed by food. So she always keeps food on hand, though. She keeps snacks for Tatiana all the time in a satchel.
I love that. It's essentially kind of like the Snickers commercials. Like, hey, you're getting a little too rowdy. Here you go.
Yeah, it's your Scooby snacks.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, there you go. I love it. Yeah, no. So the items that Valentine's come with, they are fantastic, and I always love that they're so connected to story and everything like that. And Valentine's is a perfect illustration of that. Like, just I can look at this and go, oh yeah, there's that. Oh yeah, there's that. Oh yeah, it's very cool.
They tell her story well.
Yeah. Well, so changing gears a little bit to some other stuff that you do. Tell me about Pixel Circus.
Yeah, Pixel Circus is a channel that I founded in 2020. We're coming up on 2 years as a channel. And essentially, I had worked for so many massive corporations making gaming content. And I found that I wasn't going to find exactly the thing that I wanted unless I made it. So me and God, I'm so lucky to have so many incredibly talented friends, put together a couple of shows to test it out and see what would happen if we did it on our own. So many of them had so much experience on other channels and have brought so incredibly much to it. So we are a variety network that focuses on like a just positive love for gaming. We have our show It's Too Early 3 days a week, where we talk about like gaming and pop culture news. Me and one of my best friends sit in this room right here and we just talk about things we're excited about and things that are coming up and like make fun of NFTs. That's most of it. And then we do
good use of time, I'll tell you that.
It is. And then we do a bunch of tabletop stuff. We have Failed Save on Friday nights, which is our absurdist comedy D&D 5e show. It is so very lightly D&D and so very highly absurdist comedy, which is just 6 of my best friends and I doing what we'd be doing off camera. On Saturday nights, we have Dances, Dice, and Everything Nice, which is our princess role-playing game. It is on 5e as well, but it's entirely in a not Disney princess setting.
Legally distinct.
Legally distinct. Don't look too close. And it's a lot of fun and it's exceptional. And really, it is a channel almost entirely queer and woman run. It's just a bunch of gay nerds playing D&D.
It's a tagline. It's a perfect tagline.
That's it. A bunch of gay nerds playing D&D is the best way I can describe Pixel Circus. And I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of my people. I love them very much.
Heck yeah, you should be. It is a great and fantastic content.
Thank you.
What I do have to ask, what was there? Is there a story behind the name Pixel Circus?
Honestly, the name behind Pixel Circus is kind of ridiculous. We sat down and we like word clouded words we liked. And so it was probably 18 iterations of Pixel something else or something else until it just got to like them lining up to that one, if that makes sense.
No,
so
yeah,
like
yeah,
Pixel Circus doesn't mean anything. It was words that we liked in a meaning that we liked. And we all felt like we were a little kind of group of misfits in an industry that was like growing and expanding and corporatizing.
Yeah.
So it's our little circus on the internet. And that's
I
Pixel
love
Circus.
that. No, I always love the story behind how names come about, because like the writing podcast that I do with B Dave and Aaron, we I think we talked for like 3 weeks in DMs about names. And then at one point, Aaron was just like, I don't know, we should just call it writing about dragons and shit. And B Dave and I went, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we should call it
That's
that.
how the best names come up. Our morning show is called It's Too Early.
Yeah.
It comes on at 8 a.m. and it tells you everything that you need. And it was a joke name that we wrote down on a document next to a bunch of actual newsy kind of names. And Anthony, my co-host, was like, I don't know, it's too early. And I was just like, hold on.
See, what's great about that is like that was the line of thinking that y'all was like it wasn't newsy enough. When I first saw that name, I'm like, that's the perfect morning news name.
You.
Like I absolutely love it, because I always used to say that when my parents would wake up and watch the news in the morning. I'm just like, it's too early for that.
And it is. It consistently is. And the reason that the show is so early is because I was still working a full-time job at the time, and I was just trying not to get fired. So we would do the show before my work day. We would do it from 8 to 9 a.m. and I would start work right at 9.
Yeah.
So we were planning on how we could do it and manage full-time jobs, because we didn't make any money, and an independent network, we don't make any money. But so that's your story of 8 a.m.
I love that. I love it. Well, so some of the other things that you mentioned though, how has it been working with Smosh?
It has been excellent. It's been a very different experience than anywhere else I've ever worked. It's very interesting coming into a brand that's 15 years old,
Oh my God.
and being like a new kind of generation of it in that. But I've gotten to do so much fun stuff. I've gotten to write, I've gotten to produce.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think the thing that I love the most about it is it's Smosh fans for me, like over anything else. And coming from a like gaming background to these like fantastic, I don't know if I want to say that, I'm so sorry for swearing.
It's okay, Lauren took care of it.
Okay, thank you. Just like getting to be there for these like cool, queer, weirdo teens, I think is such a weird experience for me, because my audience beforehand was like much older and much also more like masculine. So now like I went to VidCon last weekend, and getting to like run around and meet these people was such a different experience. And I just have all of this feeling in my heart of like, I'm just going to go make the world better for you because you deserve it.
Oh, I love that.
I went to a women's march. I went to a protest, and I was out there, and there was somebody who was like passing out flyers and posters and stickers for reproductive rights. And one of them turned around and went, "Are you Saige from Smosh?" And I was like, you're
oh my God,
the coolest person I've ever met. Are you kidding me? Like, that was the coolest thing, to think that like people who like what I do are the kind of people who are volunteering at protests for women's rights.
Yeah,
just means the world to me. And the Smosh fandom is incredible, and I'm very proud.
That's so awesome. I
Very
love
sweet.
that. Yeah, that was another one of those like kind of funny, where I was just like, Smosh was something that my wife and I would watch it. That you came around the corner, I'm just like, what?
And you cannot escape me. Tell me what else you watch. Send me a list.
Send me a list. I will be on it. Command Zone, I'm there next week.
Exactly. I am going to be the Arya Stark of your favorite shows. I will make a list, and then for some reason we'll never really revisit that, and we'll move on with the show, and then the man will get his own spinoff. But that's besides the point.
I love everything you just said there, and it was so perfectly accurate. Yeah, no, they I can't. Have you been on the try not to laugh one?
Yes, I did one try not to laugh.
Oh, how I gotta ask, how was that?
Oh my God, it was so nerve-wracking. I was so nervous. I was very, very stressed out beforehand. And then I finished it and went, that was so much better and easier than I thought it was going to be. Because like in the moment, everything's funny.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing that you realize is like your friends are funny, the people around you are funny. Damien was there to be like, it's okay, you got this, you can do this, it's gonna be funny and very supportive. And it was great. I had an excellent time. And I didn't spit on anybody. I was afraid of spitting on people.
Okay. See, that's one of the small shows that I'm just like, oh man, if I ever got the chance, I would jump at being on that one. But I've always thought, I'm just like, I would be so scared of spitting water on someone.
Yeah, we all know how to not stand in the line of fire, but also like it's sometimes inevitable is what I've accepted. It will happen. No one will be like, ew.
Was there anyone that you were that you're proudest of getting to laugh?
Ooh, interesting. I think it was Damien, honestly. I think that would be probably the person that I was most like set on that I had to make laugh.
Heck yeah.
And also that I felt like most comfortable kind of taking the piss out of. So getting to make a Pete Wentz joke at Damien, I think it was for me, but really it was for the people who watch us that call us two Hot Topic employees at the end of the day.
Oh my God.
So that was good.
That's fantastic. Well, Saige, thank you so much for sitting down with me today and talking with me about all this fun stuff. I cannot wait to see Valentine in the game with Trigram and his awesome tentacleness. But even though we just talked about some things that you do, if people want to find you on the interwebs, where can they do so?
You can find me everywhere on the internet at Not Saige. I stream on my channel as well, just games and just chatting and often rants about capitalism. You can also find me on Pixel Circus on Twitch. We are live 4 or 5 days a week with all kinds of nerdy, good stuff. And that's an excellent way to support your local circus.
I'll support your local circus. That's so good. Well, thank you again, Saige. Valentine is coming to the game. Actually, by the time you're seeing this, has come to the game, so go unlock her right now. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of Idle Insight. So until next week, take care of yourself.